So this is just a quick introduction to this fencing project that you guys have right now. First off, this is what the beginning part says. It says you want to put a fence around your large yard. There are 2 companies that you have found to do the work. They've each given you a quote on how much the work will cost. Of course, you want to find the cheapest company, so that's the whole idea. You want to build a fence around your property. You want to get the cheapest price. So the boundary of your yard is determined by 5 trees. The lines connecting them from the edge, form the edge of your property. Shown below are the descriptions and positions of the trees relative to your house. So you have a table that has 5 trees on it. Yours is different than mine. Mine only has 4. This is just an example, and I wanted to go fairly quickly, give you guys time to work on this. Now, the big thing to realize is that each block on your graph represents a 10 by 10 foot square. So if you look at your graph, every single one of these is 10 foot. So that's 10 foot, 10 foot, 10 foot, 10 foot, 10, 10, 10, 10. So make sure when you're counting this, make sure you're counting by 10. So the first one says it's 50 foot north. Well, obviously 50 foot north, and I think on your paper it says from your house, but it's the same. It's from the origin. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 is right here. That's a really easy one. However, the next one's a little bit more difficult. It says 10 feet south and 40 foot east. I can never remember my east and west for the life of me. So it gives you this little compass, and yours isn't on your graph paper. Yours is over where your table is at. But east is to the right. So you're going to go 10 foot down, 40 foot to the east, to the right. So 10 foot down is just one step, and then 10, 20, 30, 40 is right here. And then I already put 0.3 and 0.4 there for you. Once you have that, and again, yours will have 5 points. Once you have that, then you connect these. Yours says to use a straight edge. I'm not that finicky as long as it's close. So that's what your property looks like. You want to know, you want to build a fence around the property, so you're going to eventually want to know what the perimeter is. So you're going to find the perimeter of all these. To find the perimeter, you can do 2 things. You can either use the Pythagorean theorem or the distance formula. They're actually the same, and I would love to take like 15 minutes to show you how they actually end up being the exact same. But the Pythagorean theorem is going to be way easier for you guys. If you'd rather use the distance formula, you can, but I'd use Pythagorean theorem. So to do that, you're just going to take each one of these and make it into a right triangle. So this right triangle here, that's going to give you this length. This one, you can use this right triangle here. And again, there's 2. I mean, you could also use this right triangle. Doesn't make any difference. This right triangle looks like this. So you're going to make a right triangle and use the Pythagorean theorem. So to do that, I made this, and I actually already did it with all these. And this is where I made my mistake. When I did this video the first time, and when I explained this and did this problem the first time, I made the mistake where I said, okay, so I made this triangle, the right triangle, and I said this is 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's 4. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that's 6. So I did that, did the Pythagorean theorem, and it ended up being 7.21. That's wrong because remember, I told you every one of these steps is 10. So make sure you don't make that mistake, because I made that mistake. I told the last class that I made that mistake, and I still had 2 or 3 people that came up confused because they made the same mistake. So please realize that instead of being 4, this is actually 40. 10, 20, 30, 40. Instead of being 6, this is actually 60. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Then to find that length, it's the Pythagorean theorem. 60 squared plus 40 squared is equal to x squared. I know these numbers look big, but just use a calculator. That's 3,600, 1,600. When you combine 3,600 and 1,600, you end up with 5,200. And remember, with the Pythagorean theorem, the last step is to take the square root. So the square root of 5,200 is 72.11111. It tells you to round to 2 decimal places. So this is 72.11. So I did the Pythagorean theorem. That found this length. Then you'll have to do the Pythagorean theorem again to find this other length, which I already did for you. Then you'll have to do the 3rd time to get this one, and the 4th time to get this length. You guys will have to do it 5 times. Again, in my opinion, the hardest part is just remembering that you have to count by 10. Make sure you don't forget that. Any questions on this so far? That's the hardest part. Once you have all those lengths, you want to put a fence around all those lengths, so you need to find the perimeter, which means you just add all those sides together. Whether you have a four-sided shape, or 5, or 6, or 7, or 10, or 11, or 55, to find the perimeter, you always just add all the sides together. So to find the perimeter, we add all our sides together. My perimeter was 293.62. Again, round to 2 decimal places. Yours will obviously be different. That's where I'm going to stop for the fencing part. You should be able to find then which company is cheapest by knowing how much fence you actually need. You need 293.62 feet, not square feet, sorry. 293.62 feet. So you should be able to use your final answer to be able to pick the company. You guys should be able to figure that out on your own. If you can't, please ask. That said, the very last question says, well, what if you're doing sales tax? So this kind of jumps around a little bit. I picked a nice even number for you guys to see. But what if you're doing sales tax? How much are you going to actually pay? When you go to Walmart and you buy something that costs $20, you're not going to pay $20. You're going to have to pay sales tax. So how can you tell how much sales tax is going to be? Now, before I start this, I will remind you, I'm using 7% just because that's what Indiana sales tax is. Your paper, your project uses 6%. So I broke it down into 2 different ways. I don't care which way you do it. They're actually the same way. The first way is just, it takes 2 steps, and the second way you do it all in 1 step. So the first way you do it is you say, okay, so it's $324 total. I'm going to have to pay 7% of that in taxes. So 7% is 0.07. So if you want to know what 7% of 324 is, you just multiply it by 0.07. That's all you have to do. So 324 times 0.07 is 2268. But that's not your answer. Wouldn't that be awesome if sales tax was 7%? So instead of paying $300, I just paid $22. It'd be great. You're paying $22 extra dollars. So you're going to pay the $324, $324 and the $22.68 on top of that. So the total is going to be when you add those together. You end up with 346.68. Now, again, that way takes a little bit longer, but I like it because it makes sense to me. I find 7% of the total, I add those 2 together, and that's how much you're going to end up paying. So $22 of that is what went to taxes. Now, the second way to do it, again, it's really pretty much the same way, but the second way to do it is to look at it this way. $324 is 100%. You're going to pay for 100% of that, so you're going to pay $324. But then you're actually going to pay an extra 7% of that, so you're not paying 100%, you're paying 107% of that, because you're paying extra 7%. So 107%, if you make that into a decimal, that's 1.07. So instead of multiplying by just 0.7, you can multiply by 1.07. And again, this is the thought of you're paying 107% of that total. So if you type that in, you should get the exact same answer. Now again, this way is a little bit quicker, but I think it's a little bit harder to wrap your mind around. This way takes a little bit longer, but I think it makes a lot more sense. You find 7%, that's $22. So the total is going to be when you add those together. Last but not least, again, 6% is what you guys are using on your project, so make sure you're being careful with that.